Comrades, as we all know, we are in the midst of an economic crisis, so it's only natural that the economy plays a significant role in today's conference. The Workers' Party wants an economic plan for full employment. People in jobs in the public, private and voluntary community sectors earning a good living and paying less, expecting good quality health, education and local services in return. The scale of the problems facing the Northern Ireland economy is not to be underestimated. The recent British Treasury paper on rebalancing the Northern Ireland economy takes a very critical view of today's state, of its current state. It points out the lowest wages in the UK and Ireland are found here, with the highest energy costs and the highest levels of food poverty. As prices in the shops, electricity, heating oil, petrol forecourts and for public transport continue to rise, take-home pay for the majority of workers has been frozen or has fallen. 40,000 people lost their jobs between June 2008 and March 2011. Low-paid workers remain disproportionately female, part-time and constituted in the private sector. 20% of workers now earn less than the living wage. The amount needed to pay for all the basic necessities of food, heat, clothes and accommodation. Working people are already living in poverty. We are not in this together. Northern Ireland has also suffered the worst impact from the recession, with the highest economic inactivity rate over 28% against the UK average of 23%. We are also overrepresented in low-pay sectors such as agriculture and food processing. This party points to those sectors as representing low wages, poor employment protection and widespread use and abuse of economic migrant workers. The boom and bust cycle of capitalist economics means that the economic crises come around with regularity. The current crisis was not a natural phenomenon, but the work of local and global finances was confident that if the great bubble burst, the public would bail the private banks out. The debt that we incurred is not a sovereign or government debt. It belongs to the companies, corporations and speculators. Capitalism demonstrated its failure on the global stage. The crisis of 2011 has been allowed to become not just the solvency of banks, but the solvency of states and governments too. This marks a continuing failure of governments to control and regulate financial markets. The reality is that we need to change the system. Socialism is the alternative. Many of those guilty of the greed and the financial collapse still remain immune from prosecution and public exposure. There is an alternative to capitalism, and the system which is now struggling across the world to survive and justify its avarice and greed. The alternative is socialism and a planned economic framework which regulates the global enterprises that currently look at politics and the government as a convenient bailout when things go wrong. The Workers' Party has been consistent in its economic programme, nationalise the banks and gain for public good, not as private profit machines. Tax whose people can afford it and reduce taxes for people on the lowest incomes. Be clear about the values that are important to society and ensure greed is not one of them. In the real world of Northern Ireland today, working people and families face pressure from the squeeze in pay, the cost of living in energy, food and increased local taxation. The reality of unemployment, part-time working and job insecurity affects an increasing number as every day passes. Real wages for those in both public and private sector have fallen below all measures of inflation, and welfare benefits for those unable to work are under more intensive scrutiny and we are definitely not in this altogether. Longer term, pension provision is now under attack to squeeze more from workers being forced to work longer to receive less. The penalty paid by the working class in the past has been immigration, and now bankruptcy and inheritance in the older age are back in the agenda. The prospects for our youngest are stark. Even the fuel allowances for the elderly have been cut to help prop up the debts of the bankers. The private sector journey has traditionally failed to step up to the plate in Northern Ireland and reinvest its profits here. That failure is now compounded by the banks that have been recapitalised with taxpayers' money and are holding on to that cash. The Workers' Party wants no more casino economic gambling with all our features. Target public investment and the private money will follow when they realise you're serious. Our programmes for an economic strategy for Northern Ireland must include regulation of the current banking system, tackle tax avoidance and creation of a national bank under public ownership, reform of the current utility regulators with real power to intervene in the prices of energy such as oil, electricity, gas, extended to home heating and oil. A skills strategy set inside a single department of education and skills, a cross-departmental programme of infrastructure development, research and development of incentives for existing companies and universities, a strategy to support SMEs away from dependence and reward an incentive for innovation, a strategy to support agriculture and the food industry. Thank you, comrades.
The economy. You know something, the people that we have entrusted the wealth that we create have really screwed us up big time. You know, something, I don't know, I don't think they have a clue how to fix it. Why? Because it's based on the rotten principle of greed. When the wolf is left behind the hen house, what do you expect? We're in a situation here now, and everybody talks about global crisis and all of that. And we're bogged down. And in the meantime, our economy that we work for, that we pay for, has been undervalued, undermined, every which way and loose. And you know something? That's why we need a Workers' Party.
Public education systems are now being seen as nothing other than training schools for whatever flexible labour business needs. And if you look at the way that the education system is being used, in order to, I think somebody said earlier that the state is not crowding out the public sector, the state is being ripped apart in the aid of the private sector. And the student loan situation and the fees situation is a perfect example of this. The Tories and the Lib Dems have abandoned any commitment to widening the numbers involved in getting degrees, and instead they have handed over the financing of student education to private capital. And Brian McDermott, in a recent article for Look Left, talked about how the capitalist mantra was never waste a crisis. And I think we can see how this is being done here. The push for lower taxes, the idea that the only way to get business started again, to get the economy going again, is so-called austerity. Well, the reality is austerity means lower wages. That's all it means. It does not and cannot rejuvenate the economy and solve the systemic crisis and the systemic problems within capitalism. There's only one thing that we as the Workers' Party think can do that, the only real solution for the economy, and that's to grow and expand the role of the state within the economy, to take more and more areas of the economy under public control and use them for the public good and in the public interest. That social democracy has become a joke. We cannot abandon the importance of the state in our model for driving the economy. The reality is the state already drives the economy, but it does so in the interest of the private sector. It's time to use the state to drive the economy in the interest of the entire population, and to use that in a planned way to create full employment, which is what this document talks about. And this must be the starting point for the rest of our work in the economy.
The final part of this morning's work, in many respects, reflects the progress that has been made within the last 12 months, and of which I spoke earlier this morning. I should also say, perhaps by way of an introduction to it, that within the last, very recently, the last month or so, the party has had a significant number of applications for membership, new applications for membership, from people who have not been in the party before, and those applications are currently being processed, and that's a very positive development and step. But the next step is to introduce you to a primarily new party representatives. I think there are two who will not be new faces in terms of representing the party in their areas, but all of the rest of them, out of 14 representatives we're introducing to you, 12 of them are essentially new party representatives in the last number of months in their areas, and some of them coming to this view today, but will be here perhaps later. So if perhaps you could show your resounding appreciation for our new party representatives instead.
The area of South Belfast and Balmoral are not sort of typical of other parts of Belfast. It's a very specific demographic in that there's a lot of students and middle class people, and a big increase in ethnic population. And of course, with all of this comes different problems. With students, for example, you have a lot of exploitation where there are private landlords who create these multiple occupancy sort of type properties and really basically can get away with whatever they want. In terms of the ethnic communities, there's a big increase in Romanian people who I have seen myself getting stuff out of bins to eat. So there are quite a lot of specific problems relating to South Belfast, not least of which is the proposed changes by the Boundaries Commission, which I think we all have to oppose. So therefore I think it's a challenge for any of us as representatives in the area to find out all that we can, to gain the information, and then with the help and support of our branches to go forward and get some very valuable work done in the future. Thank you.
I would now like to ask Comrade Richard Rogers, who is the representative for Ballymena North.